Hello. For our presentation, my colleagues Joe, Lindsay, and I collaborated to identify an issue within equity and diversity that needed more attention in our field of STEM education. In our studies over the semester, we have identified that gender in mathematics was an area that we would focus on. So before we get to our final product, we will start by looking at what math education scholars conjecture about gender in mathematics. So Asmandi in 2011 discussed gender achievement gaps are frequently studied. In addition, the gender power relations within mathematics classrooms need to be addressed. Asmandi defines genderism as a way of valuing gender normative people over those that are seen as non-normative. Gender is essentialized, meaning that typical gender characteristics are applied to boys and girls with little variation. As educators, we need to be aware of the pedagogical practices that we use that reinforce gender characteristics as unchangeable or only able to be applied to certain groups. As researchers, we must see that closing gender achievement gaps cannot be our only goal. We must work for the broader goal of ending genderism in our schools and society. The second scholar is Kat Rands, and she discusses gender complex education that includes regular everyday discourse and curriculum materials inclusive of gender nonconforming students and transgender students, and it needs to be established. Too often, discussions about what it means for a person to be transgender are treated as reactions. For example, when a student or teacher is transitioning, or when a transgender student or teacher moves into a new district. Discourse about gender complexity needs to be proactive, giving students who identify as transgender or who express themselves as in non-heteronormative ways validation and acceptance in social talk and curriculum materials. As Lux said, all children need curricular mirrors to see themselves reflected and thus feel safe being themselves. When we avoid talking about gender altogether, so-called gender blindness, it may be well-intentioned, but it does not solve the problem of socially embracing and including transgender and gender nonconforming students in what is considered socially normal. Changing how people talk will. So in this article, Kat Rands builds on the work of Paulo Freire and Eric Gutstein in developing a way for students to engage with important mathematics content as they examine, interpret, and react to the most recent National School Climate Survey, a survey administered every other year by the Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network. The proposed project, aimed at middle grade students, asked students to examine how often the participants reported that a student intervened when another student made negative remarks about someone's gender expression, all while engaging in proportional reasoning and important statistical concepts. Finally, the project involves asking students to write their own survey based on the survey reported in the National School Climate Survey and administer it to the students in their school, analyzing the data and making public the findings. A third scholar is Lori Rubel, who discusses speaking up and speaking out about gender and mathematics. So what we found in the article is that conflation of sex with gender is a problem. It reinforces that individuals are either born male or female, that sex and gender are fixed qualities, and gender is always equal to sex. This really contributes to gender normativity, the idea that there's only one way to be male and a different way to be female. Rubel suggests to challenge gender normativity with the use of gender complex education, which was just discussed by Rands in 2013 as directly acknowledging gender diversity by making the curriculum and pedagogy reflect the existence of transgender and gender nonconforming people. Rubel also suggests that in mathematics, we need to analyze story problems and rewrite them to better reflect gender diversity. So she really also discusses how the use of math can math can be used to analyze gender, privilege, and oppression, such as analyzing salary gaps and rates of harassment or violence targeted against gender nonconforming people or transgender people. So this leads us to our final product. Our team collaborated to submit a presentation proposal for SSMA in November 2019. The School Science and Mathematics Association is an inclusive professional community that brings together researchers and teachers to promote research, scholarship, and practice to improve school science and mathematics and to advance the integration of school science and mathematics. So our team will share math story problems found in model curriculum that teachers are encouraged to use. Our goal is to display how the use of language within these story problems promote gender stereotypes and identities and thus further oppress gender nonconforming students. Our team will provide suggestions for engaging all students in more equitable word problems in mathematics. We will specifically look at common gender stereotyping, assumptions of gender pronouns, and assumptions of sexuality frequently found in K-12 curriculum materials. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. We appreciate your feedback.